Last but not least, Dr. Matthew Hort from the Met Office.
Very much. Good afternoon, everyone. So I've been asked to talk a little bit about a range of scenarios and links between weather, Met Office government interests and COVID-19. And so this will be a bit wide-ranging, but naturally with a Met Office slant in areas of research that, that we intersect with, or potentially intersect with. So Met Office interests are very wide. Obviously, we potentially interested in the impacts of and implications for weather, seasonal forecasting, climate change, from what's happening around COVID-19 and COVID-19 itself. The relevance of the role in a wide range of COVID-19 aspects of the weather and of things like air quality and pollen, for which we do forecasting for the UK. And so how might they be relevant for COVID-19 and the research and activities associated with that. Impacts directly on our forecasts, so do we need to make changes there? And this spans the immediate impacts, seasonal and potentially long time frames. We're also an SPF partner and for clean air, and so therefore we have an interest in how clean air develops and evolves. So clean air has a range of existing projects that are relevant to this challenge, but also there are a range of anticipated and up-and-coming open calls, obviously, which the community may submit to. And so we're naturally aware and interested in questions being raised related to CV19, but equally we're conscious that there were lots of good questions that went into the creation of the Clean Air SPF programme, and so we don't want to just dismiss those, and so we're trying to consider every possible avenue within that programme. So if I move back to some of the core things I think I was asked to talk about is COVID-19 direct impacts of the disease. There are many questions, obviously, we've heard from those about what wider environmental, societal and economic factors impact upon the rate of spread and severity of the impact. And many of those do relate to environmental sciences, so things like temperature, humidity on virus survivability, perhaps air quality impacts on the consequences of COVID-19, one way, shape or form. Slightly tangential impacts like high rise in temperatures and heat stress, the risks because we stay confined to our homes more, and also because...
Sorry but can you disable your video?
Yeah, there you go. Okay, so heat stress issues such which could be related to staying at home, but also relate to workers wearing PPE. So as we move towards the summer, there's questions here that relate back to obviously the weather and the environment. And also in how we manage exposure, we heard about possibly building management, opening windows, ventilation, and again there's a link there to, obviously, to the weather on various timescales and how we may or may not be able to do that effectively. Even more widely, adherence to and the impact from the guidelines that we've all been asked to stick to. So, you know, does what is relatively benign, nice weather result in a risk of societal disobedience and disruption? Because we all want to go outside more when normally that weather would be considered completely and utterly innocuous. And so there's lots of questions, I think, there. To support the community in answering some of those questions, the Met Office has established an online platform where a range of data is being made freely available, and this includes global as well as UK weather data and air quality data, gridded as well as spatially aggregated information, and the ability to do processing on the cloud platform, which I can share the link with later. And that's a direct example of how we're trying to make effectively government-funded data available for researchers and other agencies to exploit and see where there might be links. If we think more about impact of...
please.
Sure, impact of COVID-19 measures on air quality. I mean, the most immediate thing is a massive reduction in emissions. Obviously, we need to reflect that in our forecasts, so our model needs to reflect reality. Working out what those emission reductions are, though, is challenging. There aren't direct measurements of emissions in most cases. Many are not available in anything like near real time. So lots is inferred from air quality measurements that then we have to go back to and assess what emissions might use. And so doing that is an area of work, we adjusted the emissions used in the forecast back of the 8th of last month, and we continue to monitor that with the anticipation of having to adjust them again, potentially as we emerge from lockdown. But there are also wider implications of things like weather and climate predictions, aerosol feedbacks on the weather, greenhouse gas link for climate seasons, and these all come back to air quality emissions and the air quality in some way, shape or form. As we look forward in time to the summer, where we might get higher ozone levels, what is the seasonal forecast for the weather? Well, at the moment it's warmer and drier than average, so that could have implications where we've already got a chemical mix in the atmosphere that could lead to higher ozone. Maybe the weather will also contribute to that, so we could see an exacerbation of that particular species, just as a lot of the talk is around reductions in pollution in the atmosphere. So there's links there as well. Government obviously is also interested in longer term policy, and so what lessons are we learning from this event for future policy once we've emerged from it? But how do we use this, let's call it opportunity, in the best possible way to help us deal with other challenges that society faces? And then really tangentially, some compound risks. How does COVID-19 and how do these things affect our ability to respond to a wider range of incidents? Could be as tangential as flooding, but it could also be very severe air quality incidents. What does the current restrictions and current way we operate mean for those wider consequences in our own field? With that, I will stop. Thank you very much.